67 years of keeping my head down, saving every spare dollar, and telling myself, maybe next year. And the moment I finally bought the little lake place I'd dreamed about since I was 30, my daughter looked me in the eye and said, "Dad, you're draining our future." My name is Harold Mercer. I'm 67 years old, retired from the freight business, and I live in Franklin, Tennessee. In a brick ranch house, my wife Elaine and I paid off 12 years early, because I took every overtime shift that nobody else wanted. For 38 years, I worked logistics for a regional trucking company. I started loading pallets before sunrise and retired as operations manager with bad knees, a stiff shoulder, and enough mileage in my old pickup to circle the country 8 times. I was not a flashy man. I wore work shirts until the collars frayed. I packed lunch in the same dented cooler for 20 years. I drove a gray Ford that had a cracked dashboard and a radio knob that fell off every time the weather got below 40. But I saved. Every bonus, every profit-sharing check, every unused vacation payout, every dollar Elaine and I didn't spend on ourselves went somewhere quiet. Retirement accounts, CDs, index funds, a paid-off house, a little cushion in case life came knocking hard. And life did knock. It knocked through our children. Our son Brian is 39. He works in medical sales, which sounds better than it is because somehow a man with commission checks still managed to need help every month. Our daughter Lauren is 35. She teaches part-time at a private preschool and lives in a townhouse she could only afford because I had, temporarily, helped with the mortgage after her divorce. Temporary became 11 years in our family. I paid Brian's student loan when he said the interest was killing him. I paid his truck insurance when he said his company was restructuring. I paid for Lauren's lawyer during the divorce. Then her moving costs. Then the difference between her paycheck and her mortgage. Then the braces for her youngest. Then Brian's emergency roof repair. Then the kids' phones. Then the family streaming account because everybody uses it anyway. Then grandkids' summer camp. Then soccer fees. Then car repairs. Then one Christmas where I bought every gift, and Elaine wrapped them all because Brian said he was cash flow tight, and Lauren said she was emotionally exhausted. I didn't complain. That was my mistake. I told myself fathers provide. I told myself I was blessed to be able to help. I told myself if I kept the wheels under them long enough, eventually they would learn to drive on their own. Then I turned 67. Elaine made pot roast, green beans with bacon, cornbread, and a chocolate sheet cake with pecans because she knows that cake can still make me feel 12 years old. Brian called while walking into a restaurant. I could hear people laughing behind him. He said, "Happy birthday, Pop. Love you. We'll get together soon." The call lasted 90 seconds. Lauren FaceTimed from her kitchen, but the camera was pointed mostly at her ceiling fan while she yelled at one of the kids to find his shoes. She blew me a kiss through the screen and said, "Daddy, I hope you do something nice for yourself." That was the funny part. She said it. I believed it. 3 days later, I signed the papers on a 2-bedroom cabin near Center Hill Lake, about an hour and 40 minutes east of our house. Nothing fancy. Cedar siding, screened porch, old stone fireplace, a dock that needed work, and a view of the water that made my chest loosen the first time I saw it. The asking price was $312,000. I paid cash. I had looked at lake cabins online for 7 years. I never told the kids. I barely told Elaine at first, because I didn't want to jinx it. But she knew. Wives know the dreams men keep pretending they don't have. When we walked through that cabin, Elaine stood in the screened porch and watched the sun drag itself across the water. She didn't say anything for a long time. Then she took my hand and said, "Harold, buy it." So I did. The first Saturday after closing, I drove Elaine out there with a cooler full of sandwiches and a thermos of coffee. We swept dust out of the corners, opened every window, and sat on 2 folding chairs on the porch like we owned a palace. I watched her tuck her feet under her and smile at the lake. I felt proud. Not rich. Not reckless. Proud. For the first time in decades, I had bought something that wasn't meant to rescue anybody. That feeling lasted 8 days. Lauren found out first because her oldest boy saw a picture Elaine posted of the lake at sunset. No address, no announcement, just water and trees with the caption, First evening at our little place. Lauren called within 4 minutes. "Daddy," she said, and her voice was too bright. "What little place?" "Our cabin," I said. Silence. "Your what?" I smiled, still innocent enough to think she was surprised in a happy way. "Your mother and I bought a small cabin out by Center Hill." "You bought a second house?" "It's a cabin, honey." "A second house," she repeated. The next morning, Brian and Lauren arrived together at my front door. They didn't call ahead. Grown children only do that when they're not visiting. They're arriving with a case already built. Elaine was in the kitchen rolling biscuit dough. She looked at me when their cars pulled in, and I saw the warning in her eyes. "Be calm," she whispered. "I am calm," I said, and I was. At least then. They came into the living room and sat across from me like I was a board member who'd misused company funds. Brian had on a polo shirt with his sunglasses still hooked in the collar. Lauren carried a folder, which would have been funny if it hadn't irritated me so much. Brian started. "Dad, we need to talk about this cabin." I nodded. "All right." Lauren leaned forward. "Daddy, we're concerned." That word, concerned. Adult children use it when they want control but don't want to admit it. Brian rubbed his forehead. "A second property at your age is a lot. Taxes, insurance, repairs, utilities. Did you really think this through?" "I did," I said. Lauren opened her folder. "I looked up comparable cabins out there. Even if you paid less than listing, that's a major asset you just moved out of liquid savings." I looked at her folder, then at her. "You researched my cabin?" She flushed. "I researched the situation." Elaine stepped into the doorway, wiping flour from her hands. "Maybe we should all have coffee and talk gently." "Mom, this is serious," Brian said without looking at her. Elaine stopped wiping her hands. I noticed that. Brian kept going. "Dad, you and Mom should be preserving your money. You don't know what healthcare could cost. You don't know what the market will do. You can't just start spending like you're on vacation forever." I felt the first small heat rise in me. Spending like what, exactly? Lauren's eyes softened, but not with kindness, with pity. "Like you don't have responsibilities." I laughed once, because my body did it before I could stop it. "Responsibilities?" Brian's voice sharpened. "Dad, you're acting like this money is just yours to play with." The room changed. Elaine whispered. "Brian." I looked at my son. "Say that again." He shifted, but he didn't back away. "I'm saying you're draining our future. You're spending money that's supposed to stay in the family." Lauren looked down, then said the sentence that finished something inside me. "Daddy, we're not trying to be cruel, but you're spending our inheritance on a view." There it was. Not healthcare, not concern, not taxes, not repairs. Our inheritance. I sat back in my chair. I heard the old clock in the hall tick 3 times. Elaine was frozen in the doorway, her face pale. I looked at Brian, then Lauren. "You're right," I said quietly. They both blinked. Brian said, "We are? I need to be more careful with family money." Lauren exhaled like she had won something. "That's all we're saying?" "I hear you," I said. "I'll make adjustments." "I'll make adjustments." Brian leaned back. "Good. That's good, Dad." Lauren smiled a little. "Maybe you can still get out of it, or rent it out, or sell it in a year." I said I'll make adjustments. They stayed for lunch. Elaine served biscuits, pot roast leftovers, and peach preserves. Brian talked about a conference in Dallas. Lauren talked about her boys' school schedule. They acted relieved, like they had pulled their old father back from the edge. I chewed slowly and watched them eat at my table. My table, my house, my money, my future. That night, after Elaine went to bed, I walked into the den, shut the door, and opened the old filing cabinet. I pulled out bank statements, loan records, check copies, credit card summaries, tuition receipts, insurance drafts, mortgage transfers, and every temporary payment I had made since Brian turned 25 and Lauren turned 24. I didn't sleep much. By dawn, I had a yellow legal pad with 32 active supports written on it. Not old childhood expenses. Not food, clothes, school supplies, or birthdays from when they were kids. I didn't count a single dollar from before they were grown. I counted adult support only. Brian's truck insurance, Brian's storage unit, Brian's temporary business credit card balance, Brian's oldest daughter's cheer travel fees, Brian's lake club membership he claimed was for networking, Brian's phone line, Brian's wife's phone line, Brian's premium cable sports package that somehow lived on my card, Lauren's mortgage supplement, Lauren's car insurance, Lauren's phone, her boys' phones, her home internet, her orthodontic payment plan for Mason, her dance tuition for the younger one, her emergency credit card I had never taken back, her streaming accounts, her homeowners association dues during tight months, which had become every month, 32 supports, $6,840, leaving my accounts every month for two adults who had sat in my living room and told me I was spending their future on a view. So I made adjustments. I started with Brian because Brian liked to sound like a businessman, and I thought it was time he ran his own household like one. His lake club membership renewed on the 15th. It didn't renew that month. His credit card autopay hit on the 17th. It failed. His truck insurance hit on the 22nd. The policy sent him a notice. He called me that evening while I was sitting on my back patio, watching a rabbit chew clover near Elaine's rose bushes. "Dad, did your bank change cards or something?" "No," I said. "My insurance payment didn't go through." "That so?" "Yeah, and my card payment got rejected too. I've got late fees popping up." "You should probably call them." He paused. "Call who?" "The company's sending you notices." "Dad, those are on your card." "Not anymore." Another pause. This one was bigger. "What does that mean?" "It means I made adjustments." "Dad, you told me I was draining the family future, Brian. I'm preserving it." "That's not what I meant." "What did you mean?" He didn't answer. I let the silence work. Finally he said, "I meant the cabin. Not things you've always helped with. Help ends when it becomes a lifestyle." He got loud then. "You can't just pull things without warning." "I can," I said. And I did. I hung up before he found more volume. Lauren took longer to understand. Her first alert was the internet. Then the boys' phone data slowed because I removed them from my family plan and transferred their numbers to her account. Then the dance studio emailed about a missed draft. Then the orthodontist called her directly. She called Elaine first. I was in the hallway and heard my wife say, "Honey, breathe." Then, "No, I didn't know he canceled that one." Then, "No, I can't just put it on another card." Then Elaine looked up and saw me. Her face was hurt, not angry. Hurt. She ended the call and set the phone down on the kitchen counter. "Harold," she said. "Elaine, the boys' phones? They have a mother. She's panicking." She should have panicked when she realized she couldn't pay her own bills at 35. Elaine closed her eyes. "That's our daughter. I know exactly who she is. She teaches. She doesn't make much. Then she needs full-time work, a roommate, a smaller townhouse, or a budget. What she does not need is a 67-year-old father working from beyond retirement to keep her comfortable." Elaine looked toward the window. "You're being hard." "No," I said. "I'm being late." That landed. I could see it. For a week, our house felt like weather before a storm. Brian called, then texted, then stopped. Lauren called Elaine 3 times a day, and me not at all. The grandkids sent little messages that I knew were coached. "Grandpa, my phone is weird. Grandpa, Mom is sad. Grandpa, are you mad at us?" That nearly broke me. Not because I thought I was wrong, but because entitlement has a way of hiding behind innocent faces. Elaine almost broke on a Thursday night. She came into the den, holding her robe closed at the neck, even though the house wasn't cold. "Lauren says she may have to pull Mason from braces." "No, she won't." "How do you know?" "Because Lauren has a $720 car payment on a luxury SUV she does not need, a townhouse with a guest room she does not use, and a closet full of clothes with tags still on them." Elaine sat down. "She's scared." "Good. Harold. Fear is not always bad, Elaine. Sometimes fear is the first honest bill a person has ever received." Her eyes filled. "There are children. They are adults. They'll think we abandoned them." "No. They'll learn we were never supposed to be their payroll department." She covered her face with both hands. I waited. When she looked up, I softened my voice. "I did this, too," I said. "I kept catching them. I kept calling it love. Maybe it was love, at first. But somewhere along the way, I started buying peace. I paid so nobody would be mad. I paid so nobody would struggle. I paid so you wouldn't worry. I paid so I could feel like I was still needed." Elaine stared at me. I said, "That part is on me." Her tears slipped then. "And what now?" "Now, I finish it." 2 weeks later, the family found out about the attorney. My sister Ruth is a good woman with a bad habit of talking when she's emotional. Elaine had cried to Ruth about the kids. Ruth told her husband. Her husband mentioned to Brian at a hardware store that I had been getting papers fixed to protect Elaine. That phrase moved through our family faster than fire through dry grass. Protect Elaine. By Sunday morning, both kids were available. Brian texted, "Can we come by? Need to clear the air." Lauren texted, "Daddy, I miss you. I hate this tension." Funny thing, friends. When the money door starts closing, family suddenly remembers where your porch light is. I told them dinner, next Sunday, 1 o'clock. No spouses, no grandchildren, just us. All week, they got friendly. Brian dropped off a bag of coffee beans from the expensive place downtown. Lauren sent Elaine flowers. Brian called just to ask how my knees were. Lauren texted old pictures of the grandkids. They both said they wanted healing. I accepted every gesture politely. I did not open the money door. Saturday night, I sat at my desk with a binder in front of me. Not a folder. A binder. 3 inches thick. Tabs by name. Tabs by year. Tabs by category. Adult support only. 11 years for Brian. 10 years for Lauren. Every transfer, every insurance draft, every tuition rescue, every just this once that somehow became policy. The final number was not $1.2 million. It didn't need to be. It was $486,912. Enough to make a point. Enough to pay for that cabin and still have money left for a dock. The next day, Elaine made chicken and dumplings, fried okra, sliced tomatoes, and banana pudding because that is what she cooks when her heart is afraid and her hands need something to do. Brian and Lauren arrived in the same car, which told me they had rehearsed. Brian hugged his mother too long. Lauren kissed my cheek and said, "Hi, Daddy," in the voice she used when she was little and wanted permission to stay up late. We ate first. I asked Brian about work. I asked Lauren about her students. I asked about the grandchildren. I kept the conversation light enough to float. Brian tried to steer us toward the situation. I asked him to pass the pepper. Lauren said, "Daddy, we really should talk today." I said, "We will, after your mother's pudding." So they waited. That is another thing adults need to learn how to do. After the plates were cleared, I stood and said, "Let's go to the living room." Elaine took the chair near the fireplace. Brian and Lauren sat on the couch. I went to the den and came back with the binder and a slim envelope from my attorney. I set both on the coffee table. Brian looked at the binder. Lauren looked at the envelope. I sat across from them. "I want to talk about the sentence that changed things," I said. Lauren swallowed. Brian looked away. "You told me I was draining your future." "Dad," Brian said quickly, "we were upset." I raised a hand. "You'll get your turn." He stopped. I opened the binder. "This is a record of financial support I have given both of you after you were adults. Nothing from childhood. Nothing from high school. Nothing from birthdays or Christmas unless I paid a bill you should have paid yourself. This is not a guilt book. This is a truth book." Lauren's face tightened. I slid the first page across the table. "Brian, that first section is yours. 11 years. Insurance, credit cards, club dues, emergency transfers, vehicle repairs, business shortfalls, and household bills." Brian picked up the page. His eyes moved fast at first, then slower. "Lauren, second section is yours. 10 years. Mortgage help, utilities, phones, internet, legal fees, child expenses, car insurance, medical, dental, and direct deposits." Lauren leaned toward Brian's page, then looked at me as if I had done something indecent by keeping records of my own money. I said, Last page. Brian flipped. Lauren leaned closer. No one spoke. Elaine stared at her hands. Brian found the total first. His mouth parted slightly. Lauren read it and sat back. I said, $486,912. The room went still. That can't be right, Lauren whispered. It is right. Brian flipped back, like the mistake might be hiding between pages. This includes the club dues? Yes. That was networking. Then your network can pay for it. Lauren's eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying. Not yet. You counted Mason's braces? I counted the payments I made after you told me I was spending your inheritance on a view. She flinched. I leaned forward. You both came into this house and spoke to me like I had stolen from you. So I have one question, and I want you to sit with it before you answer. I tapped the binder. Which part of this $500,000 was your future, and which part was mine? No one answered. Good. Some questions are not asked for answers. They are asked so silence can tell the truth, I continued. I bought a cabin. One cabin. Your mother and I sat on that porch and watched the water, and for the first time in years I saw peace on her face. And you two treated that peace like a theft. Lauren wiped under one eye. Brian's jaw flexed. I will say this plainly. I am sorry I taught you to depend on me this long. I mistook rescue for love. I see that now. Brian started to speak. I'm not finished. He shut his mouth. I met with an attorney. Elaine and I have created a trust. The house, the cabin, and the investment accounts are protected. If I die first, your mother is protected from pressure, guilt, loans, emergencies, business ideas, mortgage gaps, and any sentence that starts with just this once. Elaine looked up then. That was the first time she had heard me say it that way. Lauren whispered, Daddy. I opened the slim envelope and pulled out the summary page. You are not disinherited. But you will not receive money simply because I am gone. Brian, your share stays in trust until you show 3 years of clean personal finances. No late vehicle payments. No consumer debt carried month to month. No asking your mother for money. Lauren, your share stays in trust until you support your household without parental help for 24 consecutive months. Lauren's tears came then. Quiet, controlled, but real. I can't do that, she said. You can? No, Daddy, I can't. Not with the house and the boys, and then the house is too expensive. Her face changed. You want me to sell my home? I want you to live in a home you can afford. Brian laughed once, bitter and sharp. So this is punishment. No, I said. Punishment would be leaving everything to the county animal shelter and mailing you the receipt. Elaine made a small sound. Not quite a laugh. Not quite a sob. Brian stood up. You're treating us like addicts. I looked at him. If a person panics when someone else stops paying for their comfort, what would you call it? His face reddened. Lauren turned to Elaine. Mom, are you okay with this? Elaine looked at our daughter for a long moment. I saw the war inside her, the mother who wanted to gather her child. The woman who had watched me limp home for decades. The wife who had sat on that cabin porch and remembered she was alive. Then Elaine said, softly but clearly, I signed the papers. Lauren recoiled like her mother had slapped her. You signed? Elaine nodded. Brian pointed at me. He pushed you. No, Elaine said, and her voice grew stronger. Your father protected me. From you, if necessary. That was the turning point. Not my binder, not the total, not the trust. Elaine saying it out loud. Lauren stood. I cannot believe this. After everything we've been through. I said, what you've been through, I helped pay for. That's what parents do, she snapped. No, I said. Parents raise children. They don't finance adulthood indefinitely. Brian grabbed his keys from the coffee table. So what now? We just pay everything ourselves and smile while you two play house at the lake? I stood then, slowly, because my knees don't like sudden movements and because anger does not need speed to be serious. You watch your mouth in my home. He froze. I had not raised my voice. That made it heavier. I said, your mother and I are not playing house. We are living the years we have left, and you do not get to audit our joy. Lauren's lips trembled. So that's it? The money is just gone? No, the money is where it always should have been. Under our control while we're alive, protected after we're gone, and never again used to keep grown people from growing. Brian stared at me, then at Elaine, then back at me. I hope that lake view keeps you warm, he said. He walked out. Lauren followed, crying harder now, but not enough to stay. The door closed gently behind them. Somehow, gentle doors hurt more than slamming ones. Elaine sat very still. Then she covered her mouth and broke. I crossed the room and knelt in front of her, though my knees protested. They're gone, she cried. For now, what if they don't come back? I took her hands. Then we learned to live with truth instead of paying rent on pretend. She cried into my shoulder. I held her there in the living room we had built together, one paycheck at a time. For 2 months, Brian didn't call. Lauren sent one text that said, "I need space." Elaine cried some mornings and pretended she had allergies. I drove her to the cabin every weekend anyway. The first time we slept there, rain hit the metal roof and the lake disappeared into fog. Elaine made coffee in a percolator we found at an antique shop. We sat on the screened porch in sweatshirts, and she leaned against my shoulder. "I feel guilty," she said. "I know." "Do you?" I looked out at the water. "Sometimes." And then? And then I remember Brian asking if my money was mine to play with. She nodded slowly. The 3rd month, Lauren called. Not Elaine. Me. Her voice was smaller than usual. "Daddy, I sold the SUV." I closed my eyes. "What did you get?" "A used Honda. It's ugly. Ugly cars run too." She gave a wet little laugh. "I also picked up full-time hours at the school, and I'm meeting with a budget counselor." That's good, honey." She was quiet. Then she said, "I'm sorry I said it was our inheritance." I didn't answer right away because I wanted to hear whether she had more. She did. "It wasn't. It isn't. You're still here. Mom is still here." I think I forgot that money means years. Your years. My throat tightened. "That's a hard thing to learn," I said. "I know." 6 weeks after that, Brian came by the cabin. Alone. I saw his truck pull up on the gravel drive. He looked tired, not ruined, just tired, in a way I recognized. A man meeting his own bills has a different posture. He stood at the bottom of the porch steps, holding a paper bag. "I brought coffee," he said. "I have coffee." "I know, this one's not a bribe." I nodded toward the chair. "Sit down." He sat. For a while we watched the lake. Finally, he said, "I canceled the club membership." "Good. And the sports package." "That must have hurt." He smiled a little, then lost it. "I was mad at you." "I know. I still am. Some days." "That's allowed." He rubbed his hands together, but I looked at my accounts. Really looked. "I make enough money, Dad. I just didn't live like I did, because you were covering the parts I didn't want to look at." That was the closest my son had come to honesty in years. I said, "That realization is worth more than anything." I canceled. He nodded. His eyes were red, but he didn't cry. "I'm sorry," he said, "for saying you were draining our future." That was ugly. It was. I was thinking about money like it was already halfway mine. "I know." He looked toward the water. "It isn't." "No," I said. "It's not." A year later, the cabin dock was repaired, not by a contractor, by me, Brian, and a neighbor named Walt, who owned every tool ever invented. Brian showed up 3 Saturdays in a row and didn't ask for a dime. Lauren brought the boys out one weekend with groceries she paid for herself. The boys fished off the dock until sunset, and Elaine watched them with that soft grandmother smile that makes every hard thing worth surviving. Not everything turned perfect. Families don't become postcards because somebody learns a lesson. Brian still struggles with pride. Lauren still gets scared when money is tight. Elaine still has to stop herself from offering help too quickly. And I still have to stop myself from rescuing people just because I can. But the trust stayed. The payments stayed canceled. The cabin stayed ours. One evening last fall, I sat on the porch with Elaine while the lake turned orange. Brian was inside washing dishes. Lauren was helping her boys fold blankets in the guest room. Nobody had mentioned inheritance. Nobody had asked what the place cost. Nobody had hinted about bills. Elaine reached over and took my hand. "You were right," she said. I shook my head. I was late. She squeezed my fingers. But you got there. I looked at the dock, the water, the woman beside me, the house behind me full of people who were finally learning to stand without leaning so hard on us. I had spent most of my life believing love meant making sure nobody in my family ever felt the ground shake. I know better now. Sometimes love is letting the ground shake just enough for grown people to find their feet. And sometimes, brothers and sisters, after a man has worked nearly 40 years, raised his children, paid his debts, buried his pride, and carried everyone else's comfort on his back, love is a quiet cabin, a repaired dock, his wife's hand in his, and not apologizing to a single soul for the view. Family love grows strongest when it has both warmth and boundaries. Helping someone should not erase your own life, and standing firm does not mean your heart has turned cold. Sometimes the kindest gift is letting people discover their own strength, while still keeping the porch light on for honest apologies, new beginnings, and a quieter kind of peace.